Oh man. Oh man. Okay. All right. So this is, I think, when I do these lives, it's going to be more of a study hall conversation kind of thing because I think that works best. But today, this is kind of, I don't know. I feel like this conversation might be a little rough, but I'm just sharing my thoughts and sharing my things that I've seen that have been bothering me. And so, yeah, the title of the stream is Myth versus Reality: Why Images Are So Powerful. I've noticed that the men in our community like to pick and choose what represents a Black man. We try to establish good definitions, but wrestle with actualizing them in large scale. I get the intent in theory, but if we don't collectively address what's not only being presented to the world in the media and culture or whatever, but also in reality, we won't be able to turn things around in our community. Before I go even further, what's up, Black man? I'm Jamal Calpin, and welcome to the Beneficial Black Man channel, where we focus on overcoming gray mediocrity to become beneficial for our community by discussing faith, creativity, personal development, and mental and emotional health management. Hopefully you all are doing well. If you're protecting your mental, finding time for an emotional release valve, and continue to strive to become beneficial. I've been thinking about this subject for a while. Images matter a lot in our community and a lot in our lives. We see them everywhere. We see images everywhere. We see them online. We see them in the mirror. When you look in the mirror, you're looking at an image. It's a reflection of who you are. You see images in other people. Like, images are just representations of ideas. And so we all are and are constantly exposed to various images within our, society. And I honestly believe if we don't acknowledge and accept a lot of the images that exist for us as Black men in our community, we won't be able to effectively make change. We won't be able to. And it sucks because when I have conversations sometimes with other brothers, like, I've heard Black men push back against the presence of stuff that we see online. So the manosphere, red pills, incels, or any of the negative images of Black men that exist in the world. The pushback is usually like, that's not a real man, or that's just online. People aren't really like that. And the thing is, the danger of that, even if there is some truth, and I think that truth is very small, I'm hesitant at this point, is that we need to realize the impact that images have on our reality. Very often, myths or seemingly created images are more powerful and impactful than what you experience in real life. I think about the influence of hip hop. I think about the influence of hip hop culture all over the world and how the images that are presented in music videos, on album covers, at concerts, all this stuff, even the images that are depicted in the words and the lyrics, those images have a huge impact on what people believe about themselves, about other communities, about people, about men and women, particularly Black men and Black women. Those images oftentimes aren't even real. They're not reality. But you have these images that are created, these stories that are told that go far and wide. Some are real, some are not, but they go far and wide. And at this point in time, the aspects of our culture and the aspect of our community have been taken and manipulated and distorted, and have been distorted since we got here, over and over and over and over again. And so it's represented into the community and into society, and it has a negative impact. We know this. We think about all of the bad images that have come from slavery of our people who are enslaved, for men and for women. The stereotypical images that exist, the Jezebels, Mammies, Bucks, Uncle Tom, so on and so forth. All of these images that exist that we still reference to this day, that are still modeled to this day in entertainment and in media. And within our community, we question, are those things even real? It sucks, but sometimes you see them and you're like, oh wow, actually I actually see this. This is it in real life. I recognize this. Other times, like, nah, that's made up. That's not real. But it's a struggle within our community, especially as men, if we don't realize that there are a lot of images of us that exist that's causing a lot of harm. And when we take the stance of like, oh no, that's just, these things are just online, it's not real, no guy is actually like that, that's not even a real man, so on and so forth, I feel like we're not taking ownership of a deeper problem that's existing within our community. Like if these images exist, they're having an impact. And day after day, we are seeing the impact of that. And so today, I want to touch on the situation of the young lady being assaulted by a man while other men were around and didn't do anything, And I'm not gonna show the original video because I think that's pretty graphic. I mean, at this point, if you look up woman that was hit with a brick by a man, you can find it. But I don't wanna play that. What I do want to play is a couple of responses to that I think are important. How do I tie this to this topic of myths versus reality? We live in a precarious time where people are so influenced by the wrong images and myths that it's difficult to present what's real and beneficial. So, how does this tie in? How is this why is this important? Because we keep seeing images of this of assault, of disrespect, of dishonor that's going towards black women, but also to ourselves. Like this is not good. This is not good. This is not a good picture of what a black man should be. But it exists. And there are many, 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 many other images and stories that are coming out day after day. Some not as intense per se, but you keep hearing it over and over. Like that's one of the struggles that I think us as men are wrestling with in this current modern day age is that the internet exists. So whether it's YouTube, whether it's Instagram, whether it's TikTok, whatever it is, people have the opportunity to share their stories. They have the opportunity to share their experiences, past and present. So a lot of guys get upset that their ex-girlfriends or their ex-wives can share their experiences with black men. Like I know recently, uh, it's so crazy how these stories happen so fast and so rapidly. Like they come up and then dissipate. They come up and then they disappear. But it always seems like there's another story very similar to it that comes up right afterwards. But in the past couple of weeks, there was a story of a guy who had like 6 or 7 different children with various women, and all the women were coming out and sharing the same experience that they had with the same man. And eventually, he got on his social media platform or whatever and tried to defend himself. And it didn't go well. It didn't go well. Like he was doing his best to make it seem like, he was a good father or that he's a good man or whatever. But it's hard to do that when you have all of these stories that all corroborate, all have the similar experiences, all like they all have the same evidence. And you're doing your best to be like, well, that's not me. This isn't, they're coming in here and defaming my name. Like, no, if everybody's saying the same thing, that's a problem. And then if everybody's saying the same thing about a different man, a different black man, but it's similar narratives, similar stories over and over and over again, it's becoming repetitive. And the more and more people come out and talk about it from both angles. So you have black women who share their experiences about black men. Then you have white women who share their experiences. And then you have other women of color who share their experiences about black men. And then in certain cases, you have black men who are, you know, homosexual or whatever, share their own experiences with black men. And it's sometimes the same story. So then you question, like, if everybody's sharing the same story in various capacities, sometimes it can be romantic, sometimes it can relate to violence and assault, sometimes it can relate to neglect, sometimes it can relate to abuse, sometimes it can relate to bad financial practices. It can be related to a lot of things, but you hear the same stories over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then you see examples of this recorded and shared on social media or displayed in the news. I think it would behoove us as men of our community and as black men who, whether by choice or not, are associated with these images to really like question, okay, what is happening here? What is going on? Because yes, to some degree, we were told that like, oh, a lot of the stuff that we see in hip hop or a lot of the things that we see in media and whatever in the culture, we want to be like, that's not real, whatever. That's all a lie. It's a myth. It's not true. That's not really how black men are. But I think at a point you have to question, is it, sadly, what we hope, this is what I wrote down, sadly, what we hope to be true seems to be developing into the myth more than the reality. What I mean by that is beneficial men appear to be so far and few in between that it's shocking they exist. So again, going back to this conversation that I've had with other brothers, is like, nah, that's not how real men are. That's not how black men are in real life. It seems like the reality and the standard that we say black men are is becoming more of the myth than what we're actually seeing day to day. And that's a problem. And it's proven my point, that the power of images, that whatever existed, whatever was created, this poor standard of what a man should be and what has been on display for a very long time has now become the reality. That what we demonize and what we try to distance ourselves from, to say like, oh no, that's not real, that's not the thing, that's not, all black men aren't like that. You know, even with Derek Jackson with his shirt, black men don't cheat. That seems to be the myth more than the reality that we would hope for. And that's a problem. Like, we are in a place now where we're wrestling against an image that at one point we thought wasn't true. At one point we thought this possibly can't, because, you know, I know the brothers in my life, I know, you know, the men in my life or whatever who don't act like that. But they're the minority now. And maybe they've always been the minority. I don't know. That may not be true. But at some point, let's say it wasn't true. At some point, it shifted from 70-30 to 60-40 to like 51-49 to then now the degeneracy, the wickedness, all of the bad images have become the majority. And more it's becoming hard to find examples of beneficial men. And it sucks, and it's scary, and it's a problem. It's a problem. And with this conversation, with a situation that happened that has sparked a conversation, again, what happened to this lady, to this woman, shouldn't have happened. She shouldn't have been assaulted, and she shouldn't have been abandoned and ignored in her time of need. Like, and it's okay. I'm gonna play the clips, because I think the clips that I found, the ones that I saw, articulate more of my thoughts in a more effective way. I want to highlight those before I make any more commentary. So let me go ahead and pull those up. These are both clips from black men. They're both on Instagram. So let's watch the first one.
So I woke up today to a rather horrifying video of a woman with half of her head swollen, crying in a hospital bed. She was screaming and crying because that night a man had asked her for her number, and she said no. And in response, he picked up a brick and threatened her in front of a group of men. He threatened her with a brick. Now, these men watched this proceeding and did nothing to intervene. They did nothing to intervene and instead watched this man hit a woman in the face with a brick. She is in the hospital simply for rejecting a man. And it could have been way worse. When you hear people saying it's all men, that's what they're talking about. Because it was one man that swung, but it's also every man in his life that led him to believe he could get away with that. It was also every man at that scene who proved that to be true. So I need y'all to disillusion yourself of the fairy tale. Because when I make videos about this exact situation happening all the time, what I get back is that doesn't happen. Men are natural born protectors. So I guess nature just didn't kick in that night for none of them. Had that been a group of women, one or multiple would have stepped in. I see that all the time. So I need us to stop closing our eyes and ears and men are protectors. I need us to stop doing that. No deflections. Oh, he's not a real man. He's a man. No victim blaming. No, it's not all men. It doesn't matter. This is an all men issue. Nobody's asking you to jump out and start catching bullets. The ask is for us to stop creating that guy. That guy doesn't spawn out of thin air. There are too many people that are that guy. That is not a random occurrence. That's a symptom of the society that we have. That's a symptom of this belief that violence is a masculine trait. That's a symptom of this belief that men are entitled to women's time and their bodies. That's a symptom of this belief that men shouldn't express emotions except for anger. Men never learning how to maturely deal with disappointment or rejection. This is the result of toxic masculinity. When you close your eyes and ears and you act like this doesn't happen, and instead you just keep on saying men are protectors, what you're doing is creating more of that guy. We got to get it together. To the woman in that video, Ro, I am so sorry that that happened to you. I hope you're able to recover quickly.
I agree with this guy a lot, and I think the way he just explained everything was very eloquent, and it sucks because, again, like he was saying, a lot of us are kind of banking that oh, that's not a real man, or whatever. No, it's a black man that exists, and because we haven't really taken it seriously, the fact that because there's stuff that happened to allow that man to come to the not only to come to the conclusion, but to develop the beliefs and understanding that it's okay for him to present himself like this in our society. So either he saw things, which is very likely because we usually mimic what we see. He saw things that influenced him to think this is an okay way to treat a woman, to treat a black woman. And he was not checked on it and also encouraged to do it. But like he's saying, if we continue to be delusional to say like, oh no, it's not all men, and allow this to keep happening, which is happening day after day, we get where we are now. And it's not getting any better. And I think we're doing the stick your head in the ground kind of thing instead of really acknowledging like, no, there really is a problem. There's a real bad problem affecting us as men and affecting us as black men and affecting our community. And we don't need to try to hold on to like righteous ideals or anything. We need to look at reality, that what we have believed and thought was a myth is now turned into the problem and the trouble that we see all around us. It's an image that exists now that represents us. And even if you want to say like, oh, this is just something that just happens online, no, it happens in real life too. It happens outside of songs. It happens outside of media. It happens off the internet. It happens in real life. And if we don't take this seriously, if we don't try to get to the root of the issue, which again, I think a lot of it stems with our mental and emotional health. Like he mentioned, like emotional regulation, dealing with expressing our emotions and stuff like that, but also like our humanity and having empathy and being able to have the resilience to get rejected and to deal with the ups and downs of life. If we don't develop those things in our men as adults and as young boys being raised, we're going to keep producing this image. We're going to keep producing this reality. And it's not good because it's not helping anybody. It's not helping anybody. It's not helping men, and it's not helping women. And I would say it doesn't help men because you're not getting anything out of this. Outside of like stroking your ego and trying to flex and domineer and dominate, like the people are just going to leave. That's what women are doing. That's what black women are doing. That's what women in mass are trying to do with men. Like, this is not good. We got to get away. We got to run away. We got to escape. We got to get out of the country. We got to leave the city. We got to do whatever we got to do. How can we get away from this problem? And the thing that men are looking for, not only, relationships or companionship, or even like, I don't want to, notoriety isn't the word, but like this desire to feel needed, to feel important, to be something of value. all this high value talk. If you continue to act like trash, nobody's going to contribute any value to you, even if you have all the money in the world. But we are ignoring it. We're not paying attention to this. We're not really addressing the problem, the issue that a lot of us as men are jacked up mentally and emotionally. We have really, really bad thoughts. We have really, really bad beliefs, and it's leading to really bad actions. And a big chunk of that comes from poor images that we experience in our lives. Stuff that exists in reality and stuff that exists in quote unquote fantasy, online and in media and in entertainment. It's not good. And I think as men, we gotta stop. We gotta stop like denying this. We gotta stop denying it and realize that no, we really do have a really, really bad problem in our community. And it's gonna take all of us to deal with it. We all have to acknowledge that, like, nah, yo, this ain't good. This is not good. And it ties to a variety of different things. There are some people that want the situation to stop at like white supremacy. Some people wanted to stop at patriarchy. Some people wanted to stop at people talk about feminism or whatever. No, it stops with us making bad decisions. It stops with us not actually doing the work to get better. Because you can continue to blame people and blame systems all day long. People can talk about, welfare took men out the home, so on and so forth. No, we're just not being good men. We are not being beneficial men. We are making poor decisions that harm us and that harm our community because we're trying to conform to images that are actually toxic, conform to images that are negative, conform to images that don't even match up with the way that the Most High designed us. And it's creating what we're experiencing day after day. It's creating what women are experiencing day after day. Lives being taken every 4.5 hours within our community because we don't want to admit, we don't want to acknowledge that no, there are men, lots of black men who are like this, who think this way, who are willing and comfortable to represent this kind of image in their immediate circle of friends, of family, within their community. And it's no good. I'm gonna show another clip. There's language in this one, but it's right. it's rifle. It's rifle language. I'm not really a proponent. My brother here uses the B word in addressing men who are like this, and I understand his intention. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with using that word in general to describe men or women because it's degrading and it's still like misogynistic. I understand where he's coming from though. It's anger, rifle anger, to why men continue to act like this. But I don't know. I would hope that we can find a different word to describe these kind of guys, to describe men who act like this. And then we also would just take this language out of our vocabulary when it comes to addressing people in general. Like I was trying to look that up on the, I was trying to look up words in the dictionary that would like, how can I capture, how can I capture like degenerate men in a way that was like an impactful word? There aren't many that actually have like. I look up scoundrel, and I thought scoundrel is kind of like a, but it's old. Like it's an old word. But like if you call someone like you dirty scoundrel, like it's old. But like I think we need to find better language. But again, I understand where he's coming from because this is infuriating, and it's also I don't even know if it's heartbreaking anymore. Like it breaks my heart, but it's infuriating and sickening. I'm gonna play the clip because again, I think he captures the essence of my thoughts in a more effective way.
I've done to anybody in my life to deserve this. I never did anything in my life to hurt anybody. Literally, a man asked me for my number. I said no, and he picked up a brick in front of so many men and was like, "What are you gonna do?"
No, I really want to see how y'all gonna justify this one. If it seems like I'm a little low energy, it's because I got potentially a respiratory infection that I'm trying to, you know what I'm saying, fight off. So I'm sick. But I'm also sick of you weird motherfuckers. See, I get on this app and I tend to talk on both sides of accountability, both sides of responsibility. to both men and women, black men and black women. But it ain't nothing you can tell me. It ain't nothing that you can pull up. It ain't nothing that you can orchestrate. It ain't nothing that you can collaborate. It ain't nothing that you can affix. And it ain't nothing that you can utilize to me as a man to justify hitting a woman with a brick because she did not want to give you her number. You a bitch. That's one. Two, I just recently did an episode on Not Just Another Sex Podcast with Miss Amia Burton, where we talked about this very same thing. And in that clip, I said that a number of men will say that the way that it is that black women have generated their fear of black men is based upon the media. That's only one part of the story. The other part of the story is factually, we do weird shit like this, and then other black men try to find ways to justify us doing weird shit like this. I've also had conversations with other content creators about the redeemability of black men and how we do not have an archetype for redeemability specifically for black men. Shit like this makes it hard. Because why? For what? So let me get this straight. You get rejected by a woman and you get so angry and so violent that you pick up a blunt force object and launch it near her temple to a point where this sister very could have much have died. And what y'all say in return is, oh, well, her attitude, or oh, well, she could have been nicer, or she go around doing X, Y, and Z to A, B, and C people. Do you understand what type of fuck nigga you gotta be in order to attempt to justify the assailants of women? See, when women talk about being protected from men, a lot of us as men believe that it's always in the physical sense. It is not. Actually, if you want me to keep it a stack, the reason why a lot of us as black men do not protect black women in those physical spaces is because we are afraid of getting harmed or killed as well. But once again, protection does not have to come to blows in order for it to be qualified as protection. A lot of you motherfuckers justify shit like this because you want to be able to treat women like property. A lot of you motherfuckers justify shit like this because you're angry at women for not giving you attention and you want to punish them. Brother, do you feel like the world is punishing you? Do you feel like women hold the key to every type of physical engagement? Do you somewhere deep, deep down in your soul believe that you are not good enough and therefore you have to exercise that onto women? I'm going to keep it a lean bean with you. I don't give a fuck what your response is. You do something like this, you a bitch. Straight up. And if you try to justify shit like this, you a bitch. Straight up. I have no long pontifications. I have no articles. Y'all just bitches. Y'all just bitches.
So again, I appreciate a lot of the content that Professor Odie makes. Let me take this image off the screen. Actually, I don't necessarily agree with the use of the word, but I get his point, and I agree. Like, that's some cowardly stuff. That's some cowardly, weak, punk stuff to do that, and it's childish and it's immature. Like, that's that bully stuff that you would see boys do in like elementary school to girls that they like, or because things didn't work out their way, they acted like that. And yeah, the sad reality is that, yeah, I've experienced that too, because I had poor use of emotional regulation and other stuff going on in my life. But still, this is never appropriate. It's never appropriate to treat anybody like that, especially over a situation like a rejection. And yeah, he's right. There are a variety. Shout out to Prince Petty because he did a live covering this topic as well. But there are a lot of men who were making excuses and trying to make room for this kind of behavior when there is none. There isn't. But again, this goes back to the images that we support. We'll support this and say, no, it's okay. Let's justify the mistreatment of our sisters and our women like this way. Let's do that because that's the right thing to do. let's justify the harming of, I talked about this in other videos before. Let's just justify the harming and the mistreatment of the good soil that exists within our community, the good soil that the Most High has partnered us with. Let's go ahead. Let's just go ahead and like mess it up, throw rocks at it, throw bricks at it, unalive them. Let's do all of these things, and it's just okay. It's fine because our anger is justified. Us being rejected, our like whatever. Like us being masculine, quote unquote, this patriarch, all this stuff is justified. It's right. Let's do it. No, no, it's stupid. It's immature. It's evil. It's wicked. It's it's weak. It's weak. There's nothing good from this. And as a community, if we continue to justify it in mass and not speak up against it in mass, because again, yeah, you have a handful of content creators who will speak back against it. You'll have a handful of men who will comment and in people's comments about it or whatever. But in mass, it's not. We're not moving the needle in the right direction. There's not enough of us as men speaking out against this. Like I saw recently that, and I didn't find the clip, but I saw recently that Dr. Umar Johnson decided to comment on the situation as well. And, expressing that, what we should do is pretty much have like corporal punishment within our community for men who act this way. I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Like, I understand some people have issues with violence, especially as believers. But sometimes, I don't know. I'm not necessarily trying to go back to like eye for an eye, but in vile situations like this, no, you got to deal with this stuff. Because whether we deal with it in the community or somebody calls the cops, and so Dr. Umar Johnson was saying, yeah, like if you do violent acts and mistreat women this way, we should cut off your fingers, one finger at a time. I think he said starting with your thumb, and every time you do that, we're gonna get you. The men in the community, we're gonna get you. Cut your finger off. Next finger, and just keep doing this because there need to be consequences. There need to be consequences for this kind of behavior. And I think if we are, and I believe if we were the men of our community, if we're the leaders, if we're the protectors and all that stuff, all the stuff that we like to claim that we are, we need to intervene. Because the reality is, if we were intervening at a young age, if we were dealing with the fact that there are these poor images that exist that are starting to be represented at younger ages in boys, because again, this stuff exists at a young age. A lot of the problems take root and start to grow at a young age. And if they're not addressed at a young age, it becomes more problematic when they are no longer boys, but they're men. And so whether you have young boys who are violent and misogynistic and aggressive and don't know how to emotionally regulate themselves, they'll grow up and turn into cowards who throw bricks at women. Or if you have young boys who aren't taught the importance of standing up against wickedness, who aren't taught the importance of their community, who aren't taught the importance of what it actually means to be a servant leader and a good man, then you have men that grow up to be cowards, who don't say anything, who are compliant when this kind of stuff happens. And those are the two biggest problems that exist within our community as Black men. We have those who are committing the heinous crimes and those who are complicit. And I'm sure to some degree, we have all, majority of us, I'll say, have been one of the two. And that's not good. And that's not good. And we have to change. We have to repent of that. But again, I think it starts with us really acknowledging and accepting the harsh reality that no, this is reality. It is no longer a myth. That this, we want to pass this image off to like Pookies and Ray Rays and all these other names that we make up. Like, no, it's just Black men. It's just Black men. And if we don't consciously make an effort to fight against it, it will just continue to multiply. It will continue to exist. It will continue to spread in our community. It will continue to spread throughout the world and throughout society. And there are lots of eyewitnesses who share their experiences day after day of things that they're experiencing presently or things that they've experienced in the past. Again, I mentioned this in another live or video that even if you go and ask the elder women in our community, in our society, a lot of the same stuff was happening, but people were complicit. Other men were complicit in saying that's just how it is. You can hear the next house over yelling, screaming, and abuse, not doing anything about it because that's their household. Not knowing that the offspring of that, the image that comes from that, the results that come from that leak out into the community. Whatever happens in the individual house spreads. We like to think that we are in our safe little cubicles and that nothing goes anywhere. That's not true. If somebody, if you live in a neighborhood, even if it's a suburban neighborhood, and somebody had like a nuclear factory or waste in their house, that stuff is going to spread. Like cancerous radiation is going to spread. Even if the doors are closed or whatever, that joint's going to spread. It's going to spread. And it's the same thing that's happening. It's the same thing that has happened in our community. Stuff that we feel like, oh no, it just needs to be in private and just need to be held away. It spread. It started spreading in 2020 when people were able to get online and make their podcasts and share their thoughts and their feelings. And it spread. And then there were people who were compliant. There were people who agreed, men who agreed and supported it, and then spread even faster. And even though we want to say like, no, that's not, that's not real. That's just the internet. No, the guys who are subscribing to those channels, the men who are subscribing to those channels, young and old, of different faith and religious beliefs, of different economic statuses, those individuals, even though they hide behind avatars and digital faces, they exist. Those beliefs and those thoughts exist in them. It's toxic waste that is radiating and causing cancer and problems all throughout our community. And yeah, we take a responsibility. We as men allowed that to happen. We allowed that to happen. I'm going to share one more clip, and then I'm going to start to wrap this up. And so this clip was something that my wife shared on one of her recent lives, and the conversation related to this incident came up. And one of the women watching shared a thought about, like in a comment that resonated with my wife, but more importantly, I think captures a lot of what most men aren't listening to, which is again the voice of the women in our community, the voices of Black women, and what this situation and situations like it actually represent and mean for them and also for our community. So let me pull that up. And again, I did a live recently, not a live, I did a video. It wasn't a live, but I did a video recently about receiving criticism or knowing how to take criticism. In situations like that, in situations like this, there's a lot of criticism being shared, and we need to be open to it as men. There's a lot of criticism being shared, but the ego and the selfishness, the pride and the shame that we wrestle with, I think in general as men, as Black men, can keep us from hearing the truth and hearing what we need to hear. And so this is just a quick clip of what my wife shared. And I think it was very vital and important. So let me pull this up. My beautiful bride. All right, here we go. Let's see. I got this. All right, here we go.
I've decided that my bond with my community will not be a trauma bond. I love that. I seek positive ways to bond with my community. And I love that. I love that. We have to stop internalizing all these things. So many things coming towards us from every angle all the time. It's like that movie, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I haven't even seen that yet. But yes, it is a lot. It is a lot. It is. You have to do a stream on this tragic topic. Yeah. This collectively, yes, that brick hit all of us, right? It's a collective pain, a collective trauma. Obviously, like, no, the woman was hit with the brick, but we like it radiated out to us. We saw ourselves in her face. We saw ourselves in her. And I think that's what people are missing. Like, this is not an isolated event. And I don't think that it's normal that we think that this is an isolated event. We should all genders should feel disrespected because of what happened. All of us. The audacity. The fact that someone doesn't fear taking the life or the sanctity away from a Black woman. That's wild. That's wild. No fear.
Yeah. So I agree. I agree with my wife, and I agree with the comment that was there. Like, these images, again, have a huge impact on our community. Again, we like to think that these situations are just isolated. It's just isolated. Like, oh, that just happened. That's a unique situation. That's a unique thing. That doesn't really happen everywhere else. No. No, these images reflect and have an impact on the whole community, on the whole. So when you see this clip, this is no different than the crazy stuff that used to happen on World Star. People recording fights in schools, recording fights after people get off the bus, and it just becomes like, oh, it's just what it is. World Star. Like, no. And we just accept it. We just let these negative things, these negative images, create negative thoughts and beliefs and actions in our community. And that's a problem. And like the comment said, and like my wife said, like that brick was hitting like every Black woman in our community. So for the men who are like, I only protect my wife, I only protect my family or the women who are close to me, that brick hit them too. That's just reality. Like, if we excuse this thing, if we make room for these kind of things, again, it's the toxic waste. I think there's a plane flying by. Hopefully you can still hear me. That joint sounds close. Oh boy. But if we make excuse for this, we talk about toxic masculinity or just toxic behavior, evil behavior, send in the camp. If we make excuses for this, if we make concession for these things, if we make room for this stuff, the waste of it radiates. It makes an impact. It starts to spread. The things that are hidden in private, which are at this point now are being displayed on public constantly in mass, is having an impact. That image is having an impact. And yeah, it's no longer a myth. It's becoming it is the reality. It is the majority. It is where we are. That no, Black men, we are not in a good place. Black man, we are not good. Even if you, again, I've mentioned this before, take away the individuality of it. Take away the being individual. Because again, that's what this society wants us to do. It wants us to isolate ourselves and separate ourselves. But no, we are a community. We really are a communal people. And it behooves us, again, as beneficial men, as we're striving to be better for our community, strive to be better for ourselves, and to be servant leaders for glory and for good. Like, we can't just be like, well, that's not me, or it's not the people I know. No, it is you. It is you. You are the guy who threw the brick. You are the cowardly man who stood around. You are. And it sucks to swallow that. But we have the chance to repent. We have the chance to make amends. We have the chance to turn. But we have to acknowledge and accept that is the reality of what's happening right now. That is the reality of our community. That is the reality of what exists around us. And so, like, the problems that I see, the way that I kind of summed it up is this: there aren't enough beneficial images to combat the myth, or really at this point, to combat the reality, to combat these images. There just aren't. We need to make more of an effort. And it sucks because I feel like there aren't enough of us who think or see how bad of a problem that this is, to want to share our thoughts and share our beliefs, or to even expose ourselves. Because if you're a good father, if you're a good man, if you're a beneficial man, I applaud you and I thank you. But I need you to speak up, even if that's posting stuff on Instagram, even if that's commenting under this craziness, or stop following certain accounts, stop following certain YouTube channels, stop following stuff, stop supporting it, whatever it is. We have to do something about it, and we have to present ourselves more in our community. We have to, in whatever capacity we can. I understand that everybody's not going to make a YouTube channel. I understand everybody's not going to make a podcast or whatever, but however you can, show up, present yourself, because we need more men to stand in the gap. We need more men to be present, beneficial men to be present in some capacity. And again, like, I think we don't realize how bad the problem is, that there is this terrible image that exists within our community of us that is running rampant, that is being excused and not being dealt with. And it sucks because the constant bombarding of this twisted image, this image that a lot of men have considered a myth, like, no, again, that's not real. Real men are actually protectors, real men are actually providers, so on and so forth, or whatever. No, there's a constant bombarding of this image, this myth, that's overwhelming what really could be true. The fact that black men should be beneficial men, that there are some that exist. But there's so much negativity because there's so much negativity in the reality of our experience. Again, the thing that I believe men are the most upset about, not the most upset about, what I think men are upset about is that the internet does not work in their favor right now. It's not. It's not working in their favor. Social media has been like the bane of a lot of men's existence because it gives space for people to also have a voice. It gives space for women to have a voice. It gives space for those who are oppressed to have a voice. So this doesn't only have to be within the black community, and it doesn't only have to be with romantic relationships. Those who are in power, those who are like in politics or running stuff or running businesses or whatever, they don't like the fact that people have a voice and that they can share their opinions, that they can share their experiences, and that other people can support it and say here to it. And that's what's happening to a lot of men. That's what's happening to black men. And it sucks. But again, like I mentioned, we need to learn how to receive criticism constructively because things need to change within our community. And it starts with us acknowledging and accepting that this ain't good. Where we are is not good. And I think the answer to this is we have to stand in the gap for our community. And I'm going to read a scripture. This is from the book of Ezekiel. Old Testament book. It's a prophetic book. But let me pull this up real quick. This is Ezekiel chapter 22. And let me do an English Standard Version because I know King James is rough. But all right, let's pull this up. I'm going to start at verse 17. Yes, hopefully y'all can see that. But this is Ezekiel chapter 22, verse 17. And Ezekiel is a prophet of the Most High. And judgment is getting ready to happen for the people of Israel because they're wilding out and they're doing dumb stuff, which is the the repeated story of the Bible for the Israelites. And very often is because of bad leadership, is because men were doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. But I'm going to read this passage starting in verse 17 down to pretty much down to the end of the chapter. And so again, bear with me. This is the English Standard Version, so it should be better than the King James, but here we go. And the word of the Lord came to me, Ezekiel, son of man, the house of Israel has become dross to me, or refuse. So when you're refining silver, refining precious metals, you want the root element, the thing that you put in rings, the things that you put in jewelry, the nice stuff. That's what you keep. But there are impurities and other stuff that you get rid of, and that's the dross. That's the stuff that is not good. You want the pure stuff. That's the stuff that's flashy and nice. But then you have dirt and other things, imperfections or whatever, bad stuff that you get rid of. So God is pretty much saying Israel is the crap that I don't want right now. Son of man, the house of Israel has become dross to me. All of them are bronze and tin and iron and lead in the furnace. They are dross of silver. So they were supposed to be precious, but they ain't right now. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, because you have all become dross, therefore, behold, I will gather you into the midst of Jerusalem. As one gathers silver and bronze and iron and lead and tin into a furnace to blow the fire on it in order to melt it, so I will gather you in my anger and in my wrath, and I will put you in and melt you. I will gather you and blow on you with the fire of my wrath, and you shall be melted in the midst of it. As silver is melted in a furnace, so shall you be melted in the midst of it. And you shall know that I am the Lord. I have poured out my wrath upon you. Very often, a lot of people, like to separate God that is seen in the Old Testament and the New Testament. It seems like, the God of the Old Testament is very angry and vengeful and wrathful and all this stuff. What I've noticed in my study is the God of the Old Testament, although it can be very depicted in very violent ways, has reason. And I think that's often the part that people miss. Because there's grace even in the Old Testament. It's not the grace that, is associated with Jesus Christ, but God makes a lot of space. He made a lot of space for the Israelites to get their act together. And very often they just were disobedient. And they kept doing the same stuff over and over again. And he just got fed up. And thank you to the Most High that Jesus Christ came and died for our sins. That grace has been expanded and made broad and wide for us to get our acts together. The God of the Old Testament was long suffering as well. And we just see, this is just my understanding, okay, that we see that he wanted the best for the Israelites. He wanted the best for his people, but they just didn't want him. And let me keep reading. And the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, say to her, you are a land that is not cleansed or rained upon in the day of indignation. The conspiracy, this is why, right here, this passage coming up is why the Most High is punishing Israel, why he was pouring his wrath out. There's always a reason why. It's never just like, I'm angry, lightning bolt. No, it's a reason. So verse 24, Son of man, say to her, you are a land that is not cleansed or rained upon in the day of indignation. The conspiracy of her prophets in her midst is like a roaring lion tearing the prey. They have devoured human lives. They have taken treasure and precious things. They have made many widows in her midst. So the prophets are doing bad stuff. Prophets are supposed to be the leaders, parts of the leaders, men, leaders in the community, but they're making widows. They're devouring human lives. They are not treating people well. Verse 26, her priests, other leaders, men in the community. Her priests have done violence to my law and have profaned my holy things. They have made no distinction between the holy and the common. Neither have they taught the difference between the unclean and the clean. And they have disregarded my Sabbaths, so that I am profaned among them. They are not being good teachers. They are not being good leaders. They are not serving God, and they are not serving the people. Verse 27, her princes, more leaders, in her midst are like wolves, tearing the prey, shedding blood, destroying lives to get dishonest gain. And her prophets have smeared whitewash for them, seeing false visions and divining lies for them, saying, thus says the Lord, when the Lord has not spoken. So you got the princes, you got the prophets, you got the priests, princes, all leaders, all men doing terrible stuff. And then you have prophets who are pretty much taken up for all the bad stuff that's happening and making excuses and then lying about it. Says, and her prophets have smeared whitewash for them. So they're covering all of this dirty stuff, and Jesus talks about in the New Testament about the Pharisees, like, you're whitewashed tombs. So you look good. How can we cover this to make it look good? But on the inside, Jesus says the inside is like bones and it's death. There's nothing good there. So the prophets here are whitewashing for the leaders, for the community, for everything. Like, how about we just make it seem like everything's okay? That's not all men. That's just what we see online. No, this is what a real man is. A real man is this. Let's go ahead and put this over top of that. And her prophets have smeared whitewash for them, seeing false visions and divining lies for them, saying, thus says the Lord, when the Lord has not spoken. The people of the land, verse 29, the people of the land have practiced extortion and committed robbery. They have oppressed the poor and needy and have extorted from the sojourner without justice. So they're stealing from people, robbing from people, not treating people well, not treating those in the community, the poor and needy, not doing what we're supposed to be doing, not doing what they were supposed to be doing. This is the verse that I wanted to get at. Verse 30. And I sought for a man among them who should build up the wall and stand in the breach before me for the land, that I should not destroy it. But I found none. And the King James is like, I'm looking for a man to stand in the gap. Stand in the gap. That, like, you got all this crazy stuff happening, but truth, righteousness, good, glory, all this is over here. I need somebody to stand between to do this work to make it better. And in the study guide of the book of this verse, it talks about like Moses. It talks about, I think, Abraham and other people, other like patriarchs within the Israelite nation, who took on that call to like, okay, I'm going to serve the people and I'm going to get them right. I'm going to come and help. I'm going to fight the good fight. Verse 30. And I sought for a man among them who should build up the wall and stand in the breach before me for the land, that I should not destroy it, but I found none. Therefore I have poured out my indignation upon them. I have consumed them with the fire of my wrath. I have returned their way upon their heads, declares the Lord. Sadly, I feel like this reflects where we are in our community. We know that we aren't where we would like to be or where we would dream of being as a community as a whole. That our people have been struggling with a lot for a very, very long time. And I think this verse, at least to me, really breaks down a lot of the problems that we're seeing right now, that there haven't been men to stand in the gap, to stand in the breach, to fight the good fight. Not enough to keep this craziness from happening, to stop the leaders, to stop whoever, the other men who are causing problems, the systems that are causing problems, all the crazy stuff that's happening. There haven't been enough beneficial men to serve the community for glory and for good. And because that has happened, because we haven't stood up, because we haven't did what's necessary to keep things good and keep things in a beneficial place, we have guys throwing bricks at women's faces. We have men standing around and not helping the least of these. We have men who are abandoning their families, abandoning the community. We have men who are choosing wickedness and degeneracy over righteousness, over what's good. We have a poor standard within our community and within us as men. And I think the only way that we can change that is if we actually choose to, as men, to admit that there is a problem, to accept it, and to know, all right, we need to stand in the gap. We need to get to work. We got to do something in whatever capacity that is. Again, I know everybody doesn't have to become a YouTuber. Everybody doesn't have to become a content creator. But however it is that you can present and represent what is beneficial for a man and for our community and for the Most High, we have to do that. We have to do that. If you start within your family, if you start within your community, if you start just within yourself, like breaking down all of the thoughts and all the bad beliefs and all the, I reference 2 Corinthians chapter 10, tearing down imaginations and every high thought that goes against the knowledge of God, tearing down all this stuff that we've been accepting and learning about ourselves and about our people for centuries, that keeps us stuck and that keeps us from being our healthiest and our best selves. Even if you start doing that, that is an effort towards being beneficial, and that's an effort of you to stand in the gap. But we have to commit to that. We have to decide to do that. We have to choose to live for glory and for good. We have to choose to be beneficial. We have to choose to strive to make this happen. Because if we don't, things will continue to run rampant. Things will continue to get worse in our community. Things will fall apart. And that wrath and that judgment, because I talked about that, past couple of videos about the Miss Seeley curse and, dealing with generational curses and stuff like that. That stuff will continue to stand, Black men. That stuff will continue to exist in our community. That stuff will continue to exist in our society, particularly for us as Black people. But we need to stand in the gap. As men, we got to stand in the gap. We got to turn this crap around. And again, yes, it starts with us. It starts with us getting to mental and emotional health. We have to get better for ourselves. We do. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts. Thank you for watching. If you like this, if you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I appreciate it. I understand that this is difficult, especially as men, it's difficult to hear and see how bad things are. Particularly if, you feel like you are a good guy. You feel like you are, beneficial, that you are doing the right stuff or whatever. And you don't have personal experience with this stuff. Like, you only see it on the internet. So it seems super, super foreign or whatever, right? I get it. But I think we have to, again, accept the reality that things are not good. Things are not good for us as Black men, and things are not good for our community. And it rests on our shoulders because we are the leaders. We are the servant leaders of our community. We are the ones who should be presenting an image and making a mark and influencing those around us. We were given that responsibility. We were given that privilege. Sorry, we didn't really have a choice in the matter. You were born the way that you were born. It just comes with it. It's just that expectation. It just happens. And I don't think I'm not even talking necessarily about gender roles or anything like that. I'm talking about just like the call on us is to represent the Most High. The call on us is to glorify Him, and the call on us is to serve and to be of benefit to those around us. That's part of our call. That's part of our design as men. And I believe the Most High equips us to do it. He equips us with everything that we need to thrive in that. But we have to choose to do so and to yield to it. But all right, Black man, you are called for more than mediocre living. You're here for a purpose, to live for glory and for the good of others. Let's do the work and keep choosing to become beneficial for our community. Protect your mental, find time for an emotional release valve, and continue to strive to become beneficial. I believe in you, Black man. Go make something for yourself, of yourself, and for glory and for good. Talk to y'all later. Peace.
Yo, I realize life can feel like trash sometimes. It's like you keep catching L after L, and nothing you do seems to make life any better. I've been there. Disappointed, frustrated, tired, beat down, just feel like giving up. What I've learned is that all you need to make it through the ups and downs of life is just a little bit of help. So I want to share with you the tools that I've learned to turn my bad days into good days. These simple pieces of wisdom have changed my life, and I know they'll change your life too. So go get a copy of my new book, Make Bad Days Good, a set of simple tools to take control of your life, on Amazon today. Listen, things can get better. Peace.